As I reflect on the lesson plan that I created based on Kelly Gallagher's propaganda techniques lesson plan from his practitioner text, Write Like This, there are definitely some pros to this, and there's also some setbacks of things that I want to fix in the future. Pros, my kids loved getting up and going around the room and walking around and looking at photos. They appreciated looking at photos instead of analyzing texts, and I think that was also really helpful because it was the intro for our unit for how do we analyze something for deeper meaning, how do we make inferences about something, and I think using pictures was a lot easier for some of my students because they knew that they weren't trying to read words. And even if there were words, they were in German because it was Nazi propaganda. And so they knew that, okay, I'm not looking at words. I have to look at colors and at body position and things like that. And this is stuff we also went over when I was introducing the gallery walk lesson to my students before I said, okay, no, let's go up and do it. I think many of my students were able to use the guiding questions provided in the graphic organizer to their advantage. I heard a lot of those questions guiding group conversations when I rotated around the classroom from group to group to group. And I think my students, for the majority, took advantage of those questions in order to guide their learning. And so I was really happy about that the graphic organizer was being taken advantage of and that it was actually helping guide their learning. Some setbacks, I realized in the beginning that I'd asked for my students to do 4 propaganda posters as opposed to answering only 2. That was way too much, so I quickly changed that to just do 2, an anti and a pro propaganda poster. And so that also added a small differentiation element to that lesson where students got to choose which posters they wanted to write about, which questions they felt comfortable answering. And so I think that worked out well. Another kind of setback that I realized was when I started looking at some of my students' responses, I realized that not everyone truly grasped the idea of what does it mean to analyze a photo for light? What does it mean to analyze someone's facial expressions and what that tells you about who might have, created this? There were some gaps that I neglected to fill with some of my students because I just assumed they got it because some other students got it. And then I also assumed that students who did know what was going on would be able to fill in those gaps for students who didn't. But the issue is the material is so new for everyone that didn't happen as well as I thought it would. So I wish I had done something like an I do, we do, you do to introduce the concept of analyzing pictures to some of those struggling students. But overall, I think that this lesson went really well, and I think a lot of my students really appreciated it.